The air in the observation dome hummed with a nervous energy that prickled the skin. Dave Walker, Earth's premier negotiator, leaned against the panoramic viewport, arms crossed, and watched the swirling blues and greens of his home planet drift below. Beside him, Envoy Thrax of the Topaz Collective stood rigidly, his crystalline carapace catching the filtered light, refracting it into 1,000 tiny, nervous rainbows. "Envoy Thrax," Dave began, his voice calm and laced with a familiar, down-to-earth Australian drawl. "We've been orbiting for, what is it, your cycles? 5, 6? He waved a hand dismissively. "Long enough. Might be time to talk about why your first contact involved a rather enthusiastic energy discharge aimed at Sydney Harbor." Thrax's multifaceted eyes, deep pools of shimmering amber, flickered. "Negotiator Walker, the incident was regrettable. A calibration error within our greeting protocols." His voice was a series of precise clicks and resonant tones, translated through a device clipped to Dave's collar. "We assure you, hostile intent was illogical." Dave chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. "Illogical, yeah. Maybe to you. To a bloke watching his opera house nearly get vaporized, it felt bloody personal." He pushed off the viewport and turned to face the envoy, his gaze direct and unwavering. Dave wasn't a physically imposing man, but there was a quiet steadiness about him, a sense of contained power that came from years spent staring down venomous snakes and outsmarting feral pigs. "Look, envoy," Dave continued, stepping closer, "mistakes happen. Spilt milk, dropped anvils, accidentally vaporized landmarks. We're all human. Well, human adjacent in your case." He offered a small, almost wry smile. "But we're here now, on your ship, in orbit. Let's figure out how to unfuck this situation, yeah?" Thrax seemed taken aback by Dave's bluntness, his crystalline form shifting almost imperceptibly. "Unfuck?" Australian vernacular, envoy. "Means rectify the suboptimal circumstances," Dave clarified with a patient sigh. "Look, you're clearly advanced. Spaceships, energy weapons, impressive kit, but something went wrong. And you lot are looking, well, jumpier than a startled kangaroo in a lightning storm." Before Thrax could formulate a response, a klaxon blared through the ship, a jarring, discordant tone that made Dave wince. The lights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows across the observation dome. Thrax's carapace vibrated, and he emitted a series of rapid clicks that sounded distinctly like panic. "What in blue blazes is that?" Dave asked, his calm demeanor unwavering, even as alarms screamed. Thrax's translator sputtered, his voice strained. "System. Instability. Energy fluctuations. Containment breach. Sector Gamma 9, critical." "Sector Gamma 9, Dave repeated, his brow furrowing slightly. "What's in Gamma 9? Thrax's gaze darted around the dome, his multifaceted eyes wide with what Dave could only interpret as fear. "Bio-containment. Specimen. Classification. Apex predator. Unstable environment. Simulation. Containment integrity. Compromised." Dave blinked. "Apex predator? On your ship? Bit of a design flaw, isn't it?" He scratched his chin, considering. "Unstable environment, what, like a terrarium went haywire?" The dome lights flickered again, more violently this time, and the hum in the air intensified, now carrying a distinct whine. Thrax was practically vibrating now, his rigid posture completely gone, replaced by a frantic, jerky movement. "Containment, failing rapidly," Thrax stammered. "Protocol, initiate containment protocol, Gamma 9 Delta." He barked orders into a wrist-mount device in rapid clicks and tones. Dave watched the envoy's escalating panic with a detached curiosity. He'd seen this kind of frantic, protocol-driven reaction before. Back home, it was usually city folk encountering a huntsman's spider in their bathroom. Overreaction was their default setting. "Protocol Gamma 9 Delta?" Dave asked, raising an eyebrow. "What's that involve?" Thrax's translator crackled with static. "Full system lockdown. ventilation purge, environmental stabilization, and bio-agent deployment. Dave's eyebrows shot up. Bio-agent? You're planning to gas the bloody thing? Logical. Containment measure, Thrax insisted, though his voice wavered. Apex predator, extreme threat. Must be neutralized. Neutralized? Before you even know what you're dealing with? Dave scoffed. Sounds a bit overkill, mate. Like using a nuke to crack a walnut. Another louder klaxon blared, closer this time. The deck plates vibrated beneath their feet. Sparks began to shower from a nearby access panel. "Systems failing," Thrax shrieked, his composure completely shattered. He stumbled backwards, bumping into the viewport, his crystalline form clattering against the transparent material. "Containment breach imminent." Dave, however, remained utterly calm. He stepped towards the sparking access panel, his eyes narrowed, assessing the situation. He could smell ozone and the metallic tang of overheating wires. "Right then," he muttered, more to himself than Thrax. "Sounds like things are getting a bit spicy. Apex predator loose on a spaceship. Reminds me of that time a saltwater croc got into the Darwin docks. Chaos, that was." He ignored Thrax's frantic clicks and approached the access panel cautiously. He could hear a low, growling sound emanating from behind it, a deep, guttural rumble that vibrated through the deck. "Envoy," Dave said, his voice still calm. "What exactly is this apex predator?" Thrax, huddled against the viewport, could only stammer, "Designation, Krillixanthus prime. Captured, research specimen, native, environment, extreme gravity, toxic atmosphere, hyper-aggressive fauna." "Right, so a bit of a handful then," Dave surmised, his lips twitching slightly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, multi-tool, the kind every Aussie bloke carried. He flipped out a screwdriver attachment. Thrax stared, his multifaceted eyes wide with disbelief. "Negotiator, Walker. What are you doing? Protocol dictates. Lockdown. Bio-engine deployment." Dave ignored him, kneeling beside the sparking access panel. "Protocols are all well and good, mate," he said, calmly unscrewing the panel. "But sometimes you gotta have a bit of a sticky beak and see what's actually going on." Sparks flew as he pried the panel open, revealing a tangle of wires and conduits. The growling intensified, closer now, accompanied by a heavy, rhythmic thudding. Dave peered into the opening, his eyes adjusting to the dim light within. He murmured. "Smells a bit electric-y in here. And something else. Musky. Like a dingo that's been rolling in roadkill." Thrax watched, paralyzed, as Dave, armed with nothing but a multi-tool and an unnerving calmness, began to trace the sparking wires, his movements deliberate and precise. "Looks like a short circuit," Dave observed, pointing with a screwdriver. "Caused a power surge, probably fried the containment field generator. No wonder your apex predator is feeling a bit peckish." He worked quickly, disconnecting a frayed wire and re-uplading another. Sparks subsided. The humming whine of the energy fluctuations lessened. The growling, however, remained, still close, but perhaps less frantic. "Negotiator Walker?" Thrax finally found his voice, a mixture of fear and incredulity. What are you doing? You are repairing the system without protective gear against a Krillixanthus prime?" Dave straightened up, wiping his hands on his trousers. "Yep. Figured if the containment's buggered, might as well fix it. Less messy than gassing the whole sector, wouldn't you say?" He glanced at Thrax, a hint of a grin playing on his lips. "Besides, bioagents? Always a bit risky. Might accidentally gas yourselves. Seen it happen with cane toads back home. Unintended consequences, you know." He stepped back from the access panel, and the growling stopped abruptly. Silence descended upon the observation dome, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's systems, now running smoothly again. Thrax stared at Dave, his multifaceted eyes wide with an emotion Dave couldn't quite decipher. It wasn't just fear anymore. There was Something else there. Awe, perhaps? Disbelief? Is it contained? Thrax whispered, his voice trembling slightly. Dave shrugged. Reckon so. Power's back to the field generator. Short circuit sorted, should be right as rain. He leaned closer to the access panel and called out in a surprisingly gentle voice. G'day in there, mate. Everything all right? Silence. Then a soft, almost inquisitive snuffling sound from behind the panel. Dave grinned, a wide, genuine Aussie grin. See, Envoy, just needed a bit of a chat and a bit of elbow grease. No need to go reaching for the apocalypse button just yet. He turned back to Thrax, his calm gaze unwavering. Now, about that first contact incident. Reckon we can talk about it without any more physiastic energy discharges, yeah? Thrax remained speechless for a long moment, his crystalline form still trembling slightly. Then, slowly, deliberately, he performed an action that Dave recognized, despite its alien nature. It was a bow. A slight inclination of his crystalline head, a gesture of respect, perhaps even humility. Negotiator Walker, Thrax said, his voice still hushed, but now tinged with a new, unfamiliar note. Your methods are unconventional, illogical even, yet undeniably effective. He paused, his multifaceted eyes fixed on Dave. Perhaps we have underestimated the adaptability, the resilience of your species. Dave just chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that filled the silent dome. Resilience, mate? We're Australian. We practically breed it into our kids. Gotta survive drop bears, death adders, politicians, a bit of system instability, and a grumpy alien apex predator. She'll be right. He clapped Thrax on the shoulder, a gesture that made the crystalline envoy flinch slightly, but didn't pull away, no. Come on, Envoy, let's sort out this first contact business, and maybe, just maybe, you can tell me a bit more about this Krill Xantus Prime later. Sounds like it might be a bit of all right once you get to know it. As Dave led the still-stunned Topaz envoy towards the negotiation chamber, he couldn't help but think that growing up wrestling snakes and dodging spiders had probably been the best possible training for interspecies diplomacy anyone could ask for. Earth might not have the biggest ships or the flashiest technology, but they had something else. They had blokes like Dave Walker. And sometimes that was more than enough.